Hey there! Do you know what this is? Well, of course this is money, a precious thing that everyone wants. But have you ever wondered, how can a piece of paper be so valuable? I mean, the paper itself probably costs less than $1, but when it has the number 100 on it, suddenly it's worth $100. Well, this piece of paper is called fiat money. And no, it's not the Italian Fiat car. So what exactly is fiat money? How can a piece of paper hold so much value? And why don't we use something more valuable like gold as money instead? In this video, we'll dive into the concept of fiat money. Let's get started. Section 1. Short history of money. Well, everyone wants money, including you. But have you ever wondered, where does money actually come from? Because a long time ago, money didn't even exist. A long time ago, people used a barter system to trade things. For example, Bob had bread, but he wanted to drink milk, while Tom had milk, but he wanted to eat bread. So they simply exchanged bread for milk, and both were happy. But the problem was, the barter system had no fixed value and was so limited. What if Tom only had milk and needed bread? He tried to trade, but realized nobody needed milk anymore. This left Tom hungry and unable to exchange his milk. To solve this problem, people started using items that everyone agreed had value. This was the early form of money, which was called commodity money, because it was made from common commodities like shells, salt, and other things that people thought were useful and precious. For example, in ancient China, India, and Africa, cowrie shells were used as currency. So a historical fact is that Europeans used to buy slaves from Africa using cowrie shells. So cowrie shells worked well for small daily transactions like buying bread using some cowrie shells. But as the economy kept growing, people needed lots of money for bigger transactions. Carrying tons of cowrie shells were impractical and very troublesome. Also, cowrie shells were abundant in some places, like the coastal region of the Indian Ocean, which made the economy get inflation because they were too easy to find. Yes, inflation has existed for thousands of years, and that's why people were switching to a better system. So around 600 BC, the Kingdom of Lydia in modern-day Turkey made one of the first metal coins. Why? Because metals were durable, shiny, and much rarer than cowrie shells. Gold and silver were harder to mine, which made them more valuable. This led to the invention of coins, which were stamped with symbols to prove their value like a king's face or an official seal. Now you can use these shiny coins to buy bread. Fancy, right? And that's why in pirate movies, they always have this big box full of gold coins. By the time of the Roman Empire, coins were literally everywhere. But metal money wasn't perfect either, because gold is very heavy. You can imagine how uncomfortable it was to bring your money all the way. So to make things easier, people started using paper money. First, paper money appeared in China during the Song Dynasty. But in the past, paper money wasn't really money, but a type of receipt. So instead of carrying around heavy gold coins, people stored the gold coins in a secure place, like a bank. Then the bank will give them a piece of paper that represented the value of gold or silver that you stored, which worked like a receipt. For example, if you had 10 gold coins, you could deposit them in the bank and get a paper money saying, "This paper is worth 10 gold coins." Then you could use the paper to buy a loaf of bread in the bakery. The bakery gave you a loaf of bread and he got that paper. Then the baker will go to the bank and trade the paper for that 10 gold coins. This system is called the gold standard because the paper money is tied with an amount of gold. You actually still buy and sell things using gold, but the gold is in form of paper to make it more comfortable. This idea was so popular and spread to Europe in the 17th century. Eventually, governments and central banks got involved, printing paper money tied to their national gold reserves. So, for example, if a country, let's say, had 1,000 ounces of gold and printed $1,000, it means $1 was equal to 1 ounce of gold. For centuries, most countries used the gold standard, from the US, the UK, Russia, France, and more countries. But this system was so hard to maintain during major crises or war. During World War I, many countries printed more money than they had gold to fund their war efforts. So back to our example. If a country, let's say, had 1,000 ounces of gold and printed $1,000, it means $1 was equal to 1 ounce of gold. Now, due to war, they needed more money. So they just print more money without adding more gold. Now, there's $2,000, but the gold is still 1,000 ounces. So $1 is equal to 0.5 ounce of gold. The value of money fell, and that's what we call inflation. Lots of countries printed too much money, and it eventually exceeded their gold reserves during World War I and World War II to fund their wars, which resulted in inflation and their economies being in chaos. So, long story short, about 44 countries agreed to stabilize their currencies by tying their currencies to the US dollar, which was called the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944. Why the US dollar? Because after the end of World War II, the United States, which was one of the main players in the Allied forces who won the war, emerged as the world's new superpower. As World War II took place in Europe and Asia, European countries like the UK and Germany already dried up their money and gold. So it means they don't have any gold to back their paper money, while the United States at that time controlled about 70% of the world's supply of gold. So the solution was made to have all countries' currencies tied to the US dollar, while the US dollar was tied to the US gold reserve. But a similar problem happened again. The US dollar, which became the global currency, was high in demand as every country wanted it. Yeah, even North Korea wants US dollars. But the problem was the US gold reserves were not enough to back the massive amount of money. So, for example, if $1 US was equal to 1 ounce of gold, and the US had, let's say, 10,000 ounces of gold, it meant the US could print $10,000. But the demand for US dollars as the global currency at that time was super high, maybe around $30,000. Of course, the US couldn't find that much amount of gold. Not to mention, at that time, the US was involved in the Vietnam War, the Cold War, and more spending. So, in 1971, the US president at that time, Richard Nixon, just decided to give up the gold standard. This event is called the Nixon shock. From that point on, the US dollar became fiat money, and other countries also adopted this fiat money system. So it means almost all currencies in this world are fiat money. Well, that's quite a long history, but you might ask, after the money was not tied to gold anymore, then how does fiat money hold its value? Well, we'll talk about it in the next section. Section 2. How fiat money works. So the word fiat comes from Latin, which means let it be done. In the past, kings used a royal fiat to give orders. For example, a king might declare, "Everyone must eat bread tomorrow," and then say, "Fiat, let it be done." Because he was the king, everybody started to eat bread. Fiat money works in a similar way. After money was no longer tied to gold, it lost its real tangible value or the gold value. Then the government declares this piece of paper is worth $1, $10, or $100. So it's like saying, "Fiat, let it be money." Wait, so the government just needs to declare it and it becomes money? It's that easy? Then how can it be money? Because the people trust the government who make the fiat money. Whether you like or hate the government is the one who controls the country and has the power to make the fiat money work. As long as the government is stable and strong, then the people will trust the government and its currency. For example, as the United States is one of the strongest economies in the world, people continue to trust that the United States government will continue to maintain the value of the US dollar. And that's why the US dollar is still in demand. But in countries like Zimbabwe and Venezuela, where the governments face crises and hyperinflation, those people stopped using their own currencies. This made the value of those currencies collapse. Because what's the point of having trillions of a currency if its value keeps falling and no one wants it? So now you have understood about the history and the concept of fiat money. Now let's continue to the next section. Section 3. Pros and cons of fiat money. Now that we've talked about fiat money, you might be wondering, is fiat money good or bad? Well, let's take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of fiat money. Fiat money is often debated because its value comes entirely from trust rather than something tangible like gold or silver. But there's still some advantages of fiat money. The advantage is that fiat money is cost-effective. Unlike gold standard, where the central bank needed gold reserves to print money, fiat money is easy and cheap as the central bank can just print it as much as they need. This gives the central bank flexibility to manage the economy. During crises, the central bank can print more money to lower interest rates, offer more loans, and stimulate the economy. And of course, fiat money has disadvantages too. As you know, printing too much money can cause high inflation or hyperinflation, which is very bad for the economy, like in Zimbabwe and Venezuela. Also, fiat money's value depends entirely on trust in the government. If the government makes poor decisions or faces a crisis, people might lose confidence in them. The currency can quickly lose value. So fiat money gives government and central banks more flexibility and power, but it requires more careful management, or else it will cause massive economic chaos like hyperinflation. So those were some advantages and disadvantages of fiat money. Of course, it was more than those, but in this video, I'll keep things simple for now. Now let's continue to the next section. Section 4. The future of fiat money. If you see from the history of money itself, you realize that money kept evolving from barter system to a commodity money, then to metal money, to gold standard, and to fiat money. Now you might be wondering, if money will keep evolving again, will the fiat money system be disbanded? Well, the answer is nobody knows. Currently, cryptocurrency is said to be the new money system to replace the current fiat system, because cryptocurrency is more decentralized, meaning it isn't controlled by a single government or central authority. Also, some types of cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, is limited in supply, so the money will stay rare and valuable, unlike fiat money, which can be printed in unlimited amounts. Some countries, like El Salvador, already use Bitcoin as their official currency. But until now, most people still use cryptocurrency as investments, rather than money to buy and sell things. Why? Because cryptocurrencies are still quite new and unstable, as you can see how volatile are cryptocurrencies. It's like buying a coffee for 0.001 Bitcoin today, but tomorrow you might need to pay 0.002 Bitcoin for the same coffee because of its fast price changes, making it unpredictable. This made most people still to prefer to use the current fiat money as money and cryptocurrency as investment. So as long as people still believe that the government will maintain the fiat money's value, then fiat money is set to stay dominant. But if more and more people lose trust on fiat money and start to really use alternatives like cryptocurrencies and other better alternatives, then the fiat money era might see its end. If you want me to make other videos explaining these topics, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.